Welcome, and thank you for joining the More Days, More Ways to Vote event today. Today, you'll be hearing from our California Secretary of State, Dr. Shirley N. Weber, about the importance of voting and the Voters' Choice Act. She'll also cover some of the functions of the Secretary of State. But first, let me introduce our Secretary. Dr. Shirley Weber was nominated to serve as California's Secretary of State by Governor Gavin Newsom on December 22nd, 2020. And then she was sworn into office on January 29th, 2021. Secretary Weber previously served 4 terms as an assembly member representing California's 79th Assembly District, which includes parts of the city of San Diego and the surrounding region. But she's been a champion for Californians all over the state, chairing our budget committees and advocating for legislation that would improve equality across California. Dr. Weber is actually the very first African-American Secretary of State and the only 5th African-American woman to serve as a constitutional state officer in California's 170-year history. Secretary Weber was born to sharecroppers in Hope, Arkansas. During the segregationist Jim Crow era, where her father did not have the opportunity to vote until he was age 30. And her grandfather never had a chance to actually vote. Her family's experience in the Jim Crow South has driven her activism and legislative work. She has fought to secure and expand civil rights for all Californians, including restoring the Voting Rights Act for individuals and who have completed their prison terms here in California. That's under Prop 17. Secretary Weber has also been a champion of the Voters' Choice Act in California. Under her leadership, we've expanded this program to include now 28 counties, which includes, as you'll hear today, the county of Alameda. So welcome, Secretary Weber.
Well, thank you. Thank you, LaKenya. And it's truly, truly an honor to be with you again and all of the hardworking individuals who really make the VCA, the Voters' Choice Act, active and alive and vibrant throughout California. I'm honored to be your Secretary of State, and this has been really an amazing experience for me to be able to impact the voting process in California, especially at a time when voting is under such extreme attack. It is extremely important for those of us who understand our democracy and the right of individuals to vote in California, that we really protect it and we make sure that it's secured and available to all. And we've done that by making vote by mail a reality in all of California, as well as the kinds of things that Voter Choice Act offers you in terms of being a voter county, a VCA county, and having access and the resources there. Your staff and your members of Alameda County have done an amazing job in making sure that all individuals in this county have the right to vote and that their right is protected and it's secure. So we're really pleased to be with Alameda County today and to be a part of all of their efforts, not just today's efforts, but all the efforts they've demonstrated to show that they really care about voting and they care about the state, the county, and of course, our democracy. The Secretary of State's office, most folks know that we deal with elections and we're very well known for that. But interestingly enough, that's not all we do. We are in charge of all the archives of California, and I recommend that you contact our archives because they have some amazing history and information concerning California, whether it's live chats that they have or oral history or documents. We had people visiting us from Korea on Monday because we had some documents and some trials and some cases that they wanted to read about that impacted Koreans in the early 1900s. So we have a lot of wonderful things in our archives, and I recommend that you go online, you visit our archives and see what's there. And surely if you're in Sacramento, that you'd make an effort to visit it. Our largest division in the Secretary of State's office is our business programs, which is interesting because most people think elections are the largest, but business programs are our largest. And we are responsible for all the business entities in California, making sure that every business entity is registered in California, that our nonprofits are registered, that our notaries are registered. And so all of the state and international issues of business are handled through the Secretary of State's office. our uniform codes, and those kinds of things are also a part of what we do. We have an executive division, obviously, that involves all of those who run the various programs, including the VCA program, and quite an impressive executive set of individuals. We also have an information technology. We have our own technology division, because obviously voting and business entities and filing things and computers are extremely important to all of us in Secretary of State's office. And so we have a very robust and engaged information technology division that also helps us with cybersecurity, and that's extremely important. Clearly, we have our own building, so we have management services division that handles all of the facilities and all the operations of the Secretary of State's office. And then we also responsible for the political reform division. A lot of laws have been passed in terms of campaigning and lobbying and registering those lobbyists and making sure that contributions are done according to law. We were a part of the provision, the Act of 1974, which is the reform division. And as a result, we are responsible for that, to making sure that all campaigns are transparent and money and those kinds of things are clearly registered with us. So it's a large division of about 600 employees. It's Secretary of State's office, and it touches almost everyone's life in California. And I'm honored to be a part of that, be the Secretary of State to handle all of those particular entities and those divisions that are there. But today we celebrate elections, and that's extremely important. And our election division interfaces with all of the counties in California. We work with our counties to provide them with the information that they need, the support, the interpretation of the various laws that are passed concerning elections. And I'm proud to say that we have an amazing group of individuals who are registrar voters, our clerks up and down the state, who really believe in the democracy and work very hard to make sure that every election goes off without major glitches. And they do a fantastic job, as you probably noticed. So I'm really honored to be here with you today. We welcome Alameda into the party, into the family of the Voters' Choice Act. You'll hear a lot about the kinds of things that they get as a result of being a VCA county, but it's amazing to have them. And as we continue to expand, we've doubled our numbers in the last year, and we'll continue to work with every county who wants to become a Voters' Choice Act county. So once again, welcome to the family of VCA. Thanks so very much to my staff and all of those who worked so hard to make this possible. And I look forward to seeing the impact of this on June 7th with our primary. Once again, have a great morning, have a great program, and thank you so very much for inviting me.
Thank you, Secretary. That was a wonderful presentation. Thank you for the overview of the Secretary of State's office. And now we'll pivot to talk about the Voters' Choice Act overall. You'll hear today also from ROV Tim, as well as some of the staff, Cynthia and I believe Noe. And there's also a team on the ground out there in Alameda County who will give you some footage of what it's like to be registering to vote and to vote in Alameda. So first, we'll talk about the Voters' Choice Act. It was passed by the legislature in 2016 and adopted in 2017 under SB 450. This Voters' Choice Act election model provides voters with greater flexibility and convenience, typically just more days and more ways to vote, meaning 10 days of in-person voting prior to an election and returning your ballot by either mail or in a ballot drop box anywhere in the county. So overall, voters have more ways to choose how, when, and where to cast their ballots. Voters also have to be registered. So active registration is very important. And you can register to vote, of course, on the Secretary of State's website. You can also go down to your local county office and register to vote there. And then in terms of Dropbox locations, there are 28 days that you have to vote early. And there are several drop boxes throughout the county, and you can turn your ballot there. And I've already mentioned that you can do it by mail. So of course, if you don't want to do that, you can return it in the mail or actually walk into your county registrar of voters office and drop it off there. And then starting on May 28th, you'll be able to walk into any vote center in Alameda County and vote in person. And if you forgot to register to vote, guess what? In those vote centers, you can actually register to vote on the same day and vote. So VCA again provides greater flexibility, accessibility. It includes special features for our voters with disabilities, And we are also making sure people who speak a different language have access as well. So you can also cast your vote at a ballot vote center using a voting machine and translated materials in multiple languages to help to assist you with voting. So we are pleased to be able to bring the Voters' Choice Act to Alameda County. And in the past, you've been doing a similar model, but this time you're going to actually have full expansion of the model going forward. So congratulations again, Alameda County. Next slide. So this is also about engaging voters through the community and guaranteeing access to voters in every single walk of life. So we want to make sure that every voter's voice is heard and represented in our democracy. And that's how the voter choice was actually developed. So VCA encourages voter inclusion by leveraging insights from hard to reach communities through partnerships with organizations such as the League of California Women Voters, the Disability Rights Group of California, Common Cause, and the ACLU, and a number of others. And there are local organizations too, right there in Alameda County, who are working with the county to ensure that voters are aware of their options and are engaged in the process. We also recommend, and actually under the Voters' Choice Act prefer, that language minority groups are included in the process. And so that, along with voters with disabilities, there is an opportunity to participate in the overall electoral process. And we'll talk about that actually next. But overall, the selection model does position everyone to be into having a voice and puts the power of voting at the voters' hands through education, outreach, and ensuring that everyone is aware and can exercise their preferred voting option. Next slide. So at the county level, VCA engages language communities and voters with disabilities by forming a Language Access Advisory Committee and a Voter Accessibility Advisory Committee. So the Language Access Committee is actually dubbed the LAC, LAAC, and the Voting Accessibility Advisory Committee is dubbed the VAC, VAAC. And both are right there in Alameda County. You can actually go online to the Alameda County website and find out when those committees are meeting. They meet throughout the year, and be involved in really making sure that the needs from each community are heard at the ROV's level, and that you're able to make sure those needs are met during election time and throughout the year. The LAC is responsible for ensuring that all voters, but especially those with a limited English proficiency, understand the voting process and all their options. The VAC is designed to assist and advise on recommendations to the Secretary of State's office, as well as to the local ROV's office, as to how voters with disabilities can vote independently and privately. These committees work together to help provide feedback to the county, as well as to our office on the election administration plan, which includes a framework for community outreach and engagement that is needed to ensure voters are educated about each election. So once again, as you can see, the theme is about engagement. So VCA counties are required to hold education workshops with these community groups. So it's a requirement, but the county of Alameda, I'm sure, is already doing it because they wanted to do it, but it's also a requirement. So we wanted to underline that there are these workshops that are held and there's input from the public. So we want to hear your voice. Alameda wants to hear your voice in the process. All right, next slide, please. So now we'll talk about the expansion of VCA over the past few years. When VCA first began, there was just 5 counties in California: Nevada, Napa, Sacramento, San Mateo, and Madera. And then that went really well. And so, next slide, come 2020, we had 10 more counties jump on board. And so in the 2020 elections, there were 15 counties operating under this voting model with the 10 days of early voting, as well as drop box locations and vote by mail. And so, as you can see, it has grown since 2018 when they first started. And guess what? In 2022, we now have 28 counties who are participating in VCA. And Alameda County, as you can see, is one of those newest counties engaged in the process and championing more engagement from the public and more choices and more days, more ways for voters. So congratulations again, Alameda County. All right, next slide. I probably should also mention here that under Secretary Weber's leadership, we've been able to provide over $5 million in education and outreach grants to counties so that they can do things like these education workshops, but also make sure that you have the information you need in your hand. So every community should be accessed and should be accessing any voting information you need throughout this process. All right, the screen in front of you is a QR code of how to register to vote. It is actually our active registered voter QR code. So if you hold your phone up to the screen right now, you could actually get the website to go to register to vote if you haven't done so already. And then I'm sure, as you'll see later on in this program, Alameda County's out there. And if you see their tables anywhere, of course, register there. We'll have Betty David talking a little more about that later on. We also want to invite you to know that you can actually track your ballot after you've actually got your ballot filled out and signed the envelope. If you wanted to make sure that you know what happens to your ballot after it's returned in, go to this website here, voterstatus.sos.ca.gov, and you can actually track your ballot from start to finish. So you'll want to put in all the information that's required there. So make sure you have your voting envelope with you, and then turn the ballot in, and then you'll be able to track it from start to finish from the time you turn it in to the time it's actually counted. So that's through our ballot tracks place. But also, if you wanted to register to vote, this is also the website here, voterstatus.sos.ca.gov. But in the ballot tracks, pardon me, Track My Ballot at the SOS website is actually where you can go track your ballot. And then finally, our office is available. I am Deputy Secretary LaKenya Jordan, and I oversee the implementation of the Voters' Choice Act in California. My office has a team of folks, Alicia Albernas, who's our Assistant Deputy Secretary, and Tori House, who's also you'll be hearing from later on, who'll be taking some of your questions. So at this juncture, I want to remind you that if you have a question, please put it in the chat, and we're going to get to questions later on in the program. And so we hope that you really are able to take advantage of some of these wonderful new opportunities here in Alameda County. We invite you all to contact our office if you have any questions, or to talk to the Alameda County Registrar's office if you have any questions. So now I want to kick it over to the Registrar of Voters, Tim Dupois. I want to make sure I'm saying that correctly. So Tim is the Registrar of Voters in Alameda County, and with more than 25 years of experience running government organizations and leading transformational change, Tim is both the Chief Information Officer and the Registrar of Voters for Alameda County. As the Registrar of Voters, Tim is responsible for overseeing the conduction and canvass of each election for as many as 58 jurisdictions within the County of Alameda. He's also responsible for officially certifying each election. Tim's information technology background encourages, innovative change and modern day practices to be implemented into the election process while maintaining voter confidence, transparency, and integrity of services administered by the Registrar's Office. Tim is responsible for providing leadership to organize and execute complex functions within the voting process. He's also responsible for staffing and recruitment and to support the vote centers throughout the county. So through Tim's leadership, he's overseeing and maintaining the records for over 930,000 registered voters in Alameda County. So without further ado, I want to welcome Tim to the presentation.
Thank you, LaKenya, and thank you to the Secretary of State, Secretary Weber, and to the whole Secretary of State team for helping us reach this point where we can offer the Voters' Choice Act to Alameda County. And I also would like to thank my entire team over here at Alameda County of the Registrar of Voters. It was a definite lift to get us here, and we're very happy to be able to provide the Voters' Choice Act to Alameda County for this June primary and going forward. So you can see my presentation is up, and we'll be talking about a little bit about the journey that we've taken here in Alameda County to get to this point. Noe, could you go to the next slide? So there were quite a few steps, and as LaKenya has stated, there were a number of things that happened for California in general to make this a possibility. But here in Alameda County, we've been looking at VCA, or Voters' Choice Act, since May 2015, when we first visited Denver, Colorado to watch their election, which is under a very similar model. And through a number of legislative changes here in California, we were able to very seriously look at it and how it would impact the opportunities for our voters here in Alameda County. So moving forward, in order to implement VCA, we as a county had to go through a number of steps. And on February 1st of 2022, this year, our Board of Supervisors adopted a resolution allowing us to move forward with VCA. And in March 7th and March 10th, we held consulting meetings held with language and disability organizations to take a look at our election administration plan and receive feedback. On March 30th, we held a public hearing to review the EAP, the election administration plan, and receive and incorporate any additional feedback. On April 19th, we were able to submit our final EAP to the Secretary of State for approval. And again, very much appreciate the Secretary of State's ability to expedite the approval. And on April 28th, we received that approval from the Secretary of State of our election administration plan, and therefore we're allowed to move forward with holding the June election as a VCA election. Next slide. So if we take a look at the trending here in Alameda County for vote by mail, it's an interesting stat. If you look back in 2002, only 17% of our voters were voting by mail. Now fast forward to the 2020 election cycle, and that's completely flipped. And we now have a decrease of 91% in in-person voting. 93% of our ballots for the November 2022 election were received as vote by mail ballots. So we hear our community loud and clear that they are very interested in voting by mail and the conveniences that brings. And as Tori had said, like Kenya had said, we also were operating under a VCA-like election back in November 2022, and we saw that the community was very receptive to Voters' Choice Act. So, next slide. So what are vote centers? So vote centers replace our polling places and offer more services and more options for in-person voting. So the voters can vote at any of the vote centers as opposed to being assigned to one polling location like they were in the more traditional elections. And under the Voters' Choice Act, those centers are going to be open 11 days, including Election Day. So 20 of our vote centers will be open for 11 days, and 4 days, including Election Day, the Saturday before the election. 80 more vote centers will be opened up for a total of 100 locations that our voters can vote in person. All vote centers across the county will be open starting 3 days before the election. That's the full 100, and including Election Day, they will be available. And this provides our voters more flexibility in casting their ballot. Next slide. And the vote centers will also offer voters that they can vote in person. They can mark official ballots using ballot marking devices. It contains every ballot type in the federally required languages, and then also has facsimile ballots for the additional languages that are covered under the state requirements. It's fully compliant with the Americans with Disabilities Act. Next slide. Vote centers provide voting assistance in multiple languages. Signages in all supported languages available. And with the use of electronic poll books and full deployment of ballot marking devices, vote centers allow voters to update their registration or register to vote and cast their ballot on the same day. If you made a mistake on your mail ballot before sending it in, you can go to an in-person vote center instead and vote there in person. Under the traditional polling place model, voters had to vote on election day if they wanted to vote in person in their assigned polling places. Those who did not go to their assigned polling places had to vote what we call provisionally if they went to the wrong polling place. Under the vote center model, it nearly eliminates all of the need for provisional ballot casting. So we really see this as an uplift in the opportunities for in-person voting. Next slide. Here are the vote center locations. And we've outlined 14 points or 14 ways that we've evaluated the locations to choose the right locations. And I'll just highlight a few of them. We took a look at proximity to public transportation, proximity to low vote by mail usage in the community. We looked at population centers, minority communities, voters with disabilities, low rate of vehicle ownership, low income communities, and a very long list that we went through in order to try to select the correct locations that would meet the demands for in-person voting. Here you see on this display our current vote center locations. Locations for the June election are identified as the red dots. You can find the list of confirmed locations on our website at acvote.org under Voters Choice Act. As I said, we will have 100 locations for the June primary election, 100 vote centers. Next slide. And we also have 24-hour official ballot drop box locations, and those are open to drop off your ballot that's been mailed to you. There's at least one drop box required for every 15,000 registered voters, and we have projected up to 1 million voters registered. So that's higher than the number we currently have, but we went with 1 million voters to calculate that we needed 66 drop boxes, and those have been installed and are available. As I said, these drop boxes are available 24 hours a day during this time period, and they're marked as official ballot drop boxes in English and all the 13 supported languages. You will want to check acvote.org for the days and hours of operation for some of the other services that we're providing as well. Next. So here is a list, a map. You can probably go online. I would recommend that you go online to see exactly where these are located, but again, we used a number of criteria to try to find the best location for these drop boxes, such as proximity to public transportation, low vote by mail usage, population centers, et cetera. Very much the same type of criteria we used for locating vote centers. With that, I'd like to introduce the Deputy Registrar of Voters, Cynthia Cornejo, who will go into some more detail on the Voters' Choice Act and what it means here in Alameda County. Cynthia?
Thank you, Tim. I will be going over an overview of our voter education and outreach plan. Alameda County's voter education and outreach plan consists of a summary of all of our communications and how we inform voters of their options, and an expansive approach to reach as many voters as possible, multiple times through a variety of activities and tactics. The county's approach will include voter education, workshops, and participation in community events, meetings and presentations with interested organizations and community partners, advertising, news stories, interviews and press conferences, public service announcements, social media toolkits, and more. Next slide, Noe. Our voter and education and outreach plan consists of partnerships with 3 committees. The committees, I believe LaKenya introduced earlier, which is our LAC committee, our Language Accessibility and Advisory Committee, our VAC, which is our Voting Accessibility and Advisory Committee, and our Voter Education and Outreach Committee, which is a newly formed committee this year. And we want to be able to provide and have them help us with any feedback and identify any additional outreach and educational needs in targeted communities. Our partnerships will include collaborating with community leaders and stakeholders, participating in over 250 community events and meetings each year, translating and proofing of voting materials, and ensuring participation with our inmate program as we work directly with the Alameda County's Sheriff's Office and our Public Defender's Office. Next slide, Noe. Our voter education and outreach plan also includes our media and digital footprint. And that includes outreach plans to our multilingual ethnicity targeted media campaign outlets, which includes print ads, digital ads, including social media, 3 to 4 direct mailers to register voters, radio, streaming, audio ads, videos, and public service announcements, outdoor posters in targeted areas. Next slide, Noe. Through the use of media outlets to provide information to language minority communities about voting options available under the Vote Center model elections using radio and television public service announcements, media outlet types, television, radio, newspaper, and social media, bilingual voter education workshops to required languages are English, Chinese, Spanish, Tagalog, Vietnamese, Burmese, Hindi, Khmer, Korean, Laotian, Mien, Mongolian, Punjabi, and Telugu. Our radio and television public service announcements highlighting language accessibility options at vote centers will include TV ads targeting all 14 language communities, leveraging our partners from the language communities for best practices, especially our LAC committee, community newsletters, media outlets, language organizations, community events, and language accessibility advisory committee partnerships. We want to make sure that we leverage all of our resources and tools to ensure that the participation is there for our language communities. Next slide, Noe. To provide the education and outreach to our disability communities, our plan consists of, in addition to just the general media campaign, we will provide information to voters with accessibility needs. This includes information about the availability of accessible voting devices at every vote center, as well as the option to use remote accessible vote by mail or RAVBM system. The RAVBM system can be used by all registered voters, but especially allows voters with disabilities to vote privately and independently, which is definitely something that we want to promote and encourage. Other opportunities for providing education and outreach to our disability communities include organizations that provide services and support to seniors with voter disabilities, such as CRIL and the Ed Roberts campus here in Alameda County. Community partners, cities, special districts, school districts, faith-based organizations, and a variety of community-based organizations. Our Voting Accessibility Advisory Committee, or our VAC, are strong partners to help us stay in tune with the needs of the disability community. Accessibility options that are highlighted with year-round open house for voters, and election workers to experience a hands-on demonstration using our accessible voting machines at the Registrar of Voters office during opening hours, which means we have devices here where voters can come year-round and want to practice using the accessible voting devices. They're here, they are used, and we're happy to provide them to the community. We also will make sure that we're providing radio, television, public service announcements, highlighting accessibility options at vote centers, which will be including TV ads with closed captions or American Sign Language for the deaf and hard of hearing communities, verbally descriptive announcements that solely do not depend on imagery, to make that the public service announcements are accessible for members of the blind and visually impaired communities. Community newsletters, media outlets, disability organizations, community events, and voting, and of course our Voting Accessibility Advisory Committee. We also offer our toll-free hotline, which is available on our website, 1-800-834-6454. It's available for voters to be able to make sure that they're getting all their materials and how they can access those materials. We also have our TDD line for voters who are deaf or are hard of hearing. Next slide, Nellie. So we're proud to talk about our Voting Accessibility Advisory Committee, or our VAC. Our VAC was established in 2001. So it's been established for quite a long time, and we're very proud of that. It's an all-volunteer committee established to advise on issues related to voting accessibility for elections and election materials. It also helps to advise and assist with implementation of federal and state laws relating to access to the electoral process by voters with disabilities, so that all persons who are eligible can participate in the voting process. We provide, it provides recommendations identifying and prioritizing activities, programs, and policies to ensure every voter has equal access to the ballot. Our committee members can also assist with outreach in their communities. Next slide, Nellie. Another one of our communities that we've talked about is our LAC, or our Language Accessibility Advisory Committee. Our LAC was established in 2012. So again, we've had a long-standing partnership with our language communities to ensure that we are providing access to the language communities. And a way of doing that is to get feedback. And our LAC committee enables us to advise us on any issues that may be in one particular language, that makes any ballot materials or just information accessible to their communities, to their language communities. Voters where English is not their first language, it's important to make sure that they have all the tools necessary, so that they understand and can participate in the voting process. Our committee also identifies language barriers in the communities and provides recommendations to us on how to address those barriers. The committee can assist with also outreach and in the communities. Okay, Lily, next slide. And then our newly formed committee, which is our VOC, I think is what we're calling it, or our Voter Education and Outreach Committee. This was established this year. We're happy to partner with all other communities to help us make sure that we're expanding our voter education and outreach program to all the residents of Alameda County. We want them to encourage and inform residents of the opportunities available for community involvement, target those who may not be ready to vote. Maybe they don't know where to start. Maybe they don't know what their options are. Maybe they just need more information. So we're coming up with a campaign that's saying, are you vote ready? Do you need help? Do you need more information to know how you can participate? And it starts with registering to vote. So we're really happy to start this off with our committees to ensure that all voters are participating and exercising their right to vote. Next slide, Noe. So one of the other items that we're excited to participate in through VCA and continuing on our VCA workshops. We will conduct multiple workshops for residents and voters within Alameda County. Within the workshops, it'll be including educating the public of more ways, more days, more ways to vote. We want to make sure that they understand the flexibility. We want to make sure that they understand that they can go to any vote center within the county and cast their ballot. They're not, having to go to one assigned location. We want to make sure that we're reviewing with our community members who are attending these workshops, our outreach sections of our election administration plan. We work really hard and collaborated with the communities to make sure that we were touching every single main point that was important, and actually learning some new ones too. So we want to also review anything with the vote center, all of our 24-hour drop boxes, our ballot drop stop tour, our AC Vote on the Go program. We just want to make sure that they're aware of everything that's available to them. Definitely more days, more ways. And then lastly, hands-on training or hands-on usage of our voting equipment. We want them to be comfortable. We want them to understand what the layout of a vote center looks like and how it's really not different from a polling location. Okay, next slide, Noe. And that concludes our presentation from the Alameda County's perspective of the Voters' Choice Act. I want to thank you for letting us inform you all.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Cynthia. I know that there are some people from your team out there on the ground and in the community already registering people to vote. And so I don't know if you wanted to introduce anybody or to tee it up and tell us about what's going on in the community.
Absolutely. I want to go ahead and pass it off to our outreach coordinator, Betty Davis, who is out at one of our locations. We're actually at 3 locations today, but she is live at one. Betty, take it away.
Hello, everybody. I'm so excited to report live. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Hi, my name is Betty David, and I have the greatest job in the world of being the lead with the Alameda County Registrar of Voters as the Community Engagement Coordinator and Voter Education. So we're here at the 81st Avenue Library today, engaging with the voters and also taking their drive-through ballots. So this is one of our tours today. We're also, as Cynthia mentioned, placed in 2 different locations today as well. So it's a pleasure to be out here today, and thank you for joining us live. We're excited. We have our VCA swag on and we're engaging.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Betty. We really appreciate getting that. Yeah, it's so good to see everyone out there and just in the community. This is what this is all about, staying connected and providing more days and more ways. I wanted to acknowledge Betty and Dwayna, who's also on the line, for your leadership, along with Cynthia, in helping to get Alameda up to speed for VCA this year. And we just know that it's going to be a great opportunity for voters to be engaged in the process. And so I also want to introduce on the line, if Tori House, if you're available to come online. I'm not sure if you are or not, but Tori is also in our Secretary of State's office, and she'll be helping us to coordinate some of the questions coming in today. And I think we have at least one question through, but Tori, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you. Do you want to go ahead and take some questions?
Absolutely. Thank you, LaKenya. Thank you all for being here today. We do have a couple of questions. I just want to give a quick reminder for anybody in the audience who may have questions to please use the question and answer feature in the Zoom. And I'll go ahead and give the first question. I believe, Cynthia, this may be for you, or just open it up to the county. The question came from Thea, and they want to know, how are voters' signatures verified for both mail ballots and for those who vote in person, and who does this?
All right, Cynthia, you want to do that first, and then I could add anything else.
Sure, that's a great question. We get asked that quite often. And what we do is, as you know, on the back of your return envelope, there is a signature portion and a line there for a voter to sign their return envelope. We get those back and we actually do a side-by-side comparison to your actual registration that we received. And we actually make sure that we're looking at characteristics in a signature, because we understand over time, signatures may change. And we want to make sure that we err on the side of the voter, but we also want to make sure that we can identify that there are those distinguishing characteristics within a signature. And also in Alameda County, and I know in other counties, there are various levels of approval. So if our initial person who may not be able to quite determine, will then send it up to the next level, which is our acting supervisor in our registration department. If at that point, even our supervisor is not quite sure, she will then go to our manager, who's actually in the meeting, Lolita, and they will look at the signature. It could also come up to my level, and it might even go up to Tim's level. So we want to make sure that we can ensure that that voter's ballot counts. And in answering who is doing this, we actually hire internal staff members that go through the county's process of hiring to be a temporary worker. We also have seasoned permanent staff members and actually seasoned temporary workers that like to come back election after election, which is wonderful for us.
Thank you, Cynthia. That actually leads into another question. Could you elaborate on the process of how someone could become a poll worker?
Absolutely. We actually are looking for election workers all the time. So there's lots of ways. You can go on our website and sign up. You can call our main line and sign up. I mean, just go to acvote.org to get onto our website and sign up. You call our office. On the back of the voter information guide that was mailed to you is information about how to sign up to be an election worker. There's lots of ways to do it. We have a student program that we're proud of. So by all means, please, let us know that you're interested and we'll get you working.
Great, thank you. Another question here is, when is the last day for someone to register to vote in your county?
So right now, I'm embarrassed. Lolita, can you answer that? I have too many dates in my head.
I think you're on mute, Lolita. In the meantime, I think the question earlier was, oh, there you are. Go ahead, Lolita.
Yeah, let me double check, okay? I'll be back.
We can hear you. Uh-oh. Okay, so then in the meantime, let's go back to the question about the ballot tracking and what happens after you sign your ballot and turn it in. There's something we mentioned earlier on that you can actually track your ballot after you've voted and make sure it's counted. So you can make sure your signature actually matched and got counted. Then you can go ahead and go to where'smyballot.ca.sos.gov and actually sign up there. I'm actually going to put it in the chat so people can go, and there's the website here says californiaballottracks.net/voter, and you can register your stuff online and have your ballot tracked to ensure that it's captured for you. But the other question about the last day to register to vote, I can answer part of that question, and that is in a VCA county, you can actually register the same day and vote. So while we ask for people to have their registration done early, if you didn't get it in enough time, guess what? You can actually walk into the ROV's office and register. You can go online to our SOS website and register, or you can actually go same day into a vote center when they open up on May 28th and walk in and vote and register and vote the same day. So and I think that Cynthia, you put the date down. go ahead, you want to announce the date again?
So the official that I could say is May 23rd. But LaKenya, you're exactly right. You can register up to Election Day and make your vote count.
Awesome. Any more questions, Tori?
Yes, just one last question. Someone wants a trick question, I believe here. How can someone find their polling place, their assigned polling place?
Oh, that's a trick question. Well, with the Voters' Choice Act now in Alameda County, you don't have an assigned polling location. We have 100 locations that you can go to cast your ballot. And you can actually find those locations on our website through acvote.org or .go and locate. You can actually get the map that I think Tim showed on our presentation. It will give you directions to that location that you can print. And then just remember that there's 20 locations that will enable a voter to vote 11 days prior. And you can also find those 20 locations on our website, and they are throughout Alameda County. And then an additional 80 will jump on June 4th, which is the Saturday before, for a total of 100 locations that you can go to any one of them.
That's right. So if you're not sure if you registered to vote, you can go to myvoterstatus.ca.sos.gov. I'm probably saying that wrong, but it's My Voter Status online, and you can check your status. And then again, if you're not registered to vote, it's okay. You can walk into a vote center up to 10 days before the election and on election day and vote right there in person. So again, more days and more ways to vote. So really happy to see Alameda County in full swing of the Voters' Choice Act. Congratulations once again. Tori, are there any more questions? I think I've seen one more pop up.
Yes, absolutely. So we do have a question from Clay. They asked, can you vote in Alameda County if you live in a different county?
So you want to answer that, Cynthia?
Go ahead, LaKenya. Go ahead.
Well, sure. So basically, you have to register where you are, where the county you're registered to vote in. But if you happen to return your ballot into a county you're not registered in, so if you live in, let's say, Contra Costa County, but you return it to Alameda County, Alameda will make sure that Contra Costa gets your ballot. So technically, you can turn your ballot in any county location, but we will make sure it gets to the right location. But obviously, if you can, you want to turn it into the county you're actually living in. But if you don't, for somehow, we will make sure it gets to the right place.
We do.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you all. Thank you for your questions. I'll go ahead and return it back to you, LaKenya, for any closing remarks.
Okay, well, we're just excited here at the Secretary of State's office to just welcome Alameda County into the family of Voter Choice Act counties. And it's been a journey, been a whole 12 months of ramping up. But to your wonderful team there, Betty, Lolita, Dwayna, Cynthia, Tim, congratulations on the excellent job you did in getting Alameda ready for this upcoming election. We look forward to working with you more in the future, and we're really proud to say that Alameda County is another Voters' Choice Act county. I also want to acknowledge my team again, Alicia Albernas, Assistant Deputy Secretary, Janelle Jackson, who's Deputy Secretary for Outreach, who you'll probably see more of in the community with Alameda from time to time, Denise Green, Tori House. Thank you everyone today for joining us. If you want any more information, please feel free to contact me at my office or Cynthia or Tim. We'd be happy to help answer questions. Cynthia, anything else you want to add to close?
I just want to tell you, thank you so much, SOS Transition Kickoff team. You guys have been wonderful, guiding us through step by step. And I want to say thank you to our ROV team. Thank you to Tim for guiding us. And thank you to our community partners. We couldn't have done it without them. So thank you.
Absolutely. They are the boots on the ground who are engaged with the community. We value your voices as well. Want to make sure that we always acknowledge our community partners. On behalf of Secretary Weber and the Secretary of State's office, congratulations again, Alameda County. We hope that every voter exercises their power by using their voice to vote in the upcoming elections. And we appreciate all of your hard work. Take care.